Hello students. So in this lecture we shall see how the two threads can be created in Java language. In Java we are having two ways of creating a thread. Like in the last video we had said that a thread is basically a class in Java language. It is present within java.lang package. So as we know that there is no need to import the lang package, we can directly go in order to start our creating of this thread. So let us create our first thread and name it like, so let us create first our main program which we are having in order to see the execution of public static void main. So this class would actually be our main class. We shall see how the threads gets executed. So how we actually create the threads. So let me create my first thread, and the first way of creating a thread is that extending from the existing thread class like this. So if we create a class which is a derived class of thread, we say that that particular thread is, that particular class is basically a thread one. So if we create an object of first thread, we can assume that this is a thread class, like we do it like this here. First thread, like name it as T1 is equal to new first thread. So now that this thread object has been created, but what's important within this class is that if we just try to execute this program, you will find that there is something missing within this class. So any class that extends from thread, it is bound to actually implement one method that is called as run method. So that run method within this particular class is actually the code that is bound to be executed when this thread gets executed. So if we say that thread is executing, we mean by that is your run method within that class is executing. So anything written within this run method gets executed. So let us write one for loop within this. So this for loop executes 20 times, and what we are trying to do is we are writing system.out.println. We are trying to print the value of this I within this first thread. So let me name it as like this. So when this gets executed, it will print this I like this. So now before we actually start executing this, what we say is that anytime we are having a main only within our Java programs, your main method is called as your single thread. So in case there is no thread in our application, still we say that you are having a one main thread that gets executing. So how can we actually judge it that your main is one of the threads? So like we can ensure this by getting this output. There is a class like thread, we may call it directly, and there is a method of thread class that is called as current thread. Dot say that get ID. So let us print this and just comment for this for a while, right? And just save this. We'll save it as your main.java, and let us compile this. When we execute this main, you get the value 1 that gets printed. So what is this 1? This 1 is the ID of our current thread. So what is the current thread? It is the main thread that is getting executed. We can also get the name of the thread too gets printed. Instead of getting it ID function, we are also having get name function that prints you the name of the thread that is getting executed. So instead, like this, it is printing main thread. So main is the first thread that is executing for all of your program. Even if there is a different explicit thread that we are creating, still if we are not able to create any other thread, still we say that in memory there is one thread that is executing, and the name of the thread is your main one. So we shall also print the name of other threads like this first thread that we had created. So let us create another class to create another thread in execution. I am just copying and pasting the code and naming the thread like this. Let's name it as second thread and printing the I of this second thread only. So now the two classes which are actually thread classes, they are ready. Now how do we actually make them as threads and get them executed? So like we had created an object of the first thread, we will also create the object of the second thread. Second thread T2 is equal to new second thread. So now once we create the two objects, it is not only that this is not suffice to just create and see their execution. Now all these threads which actually gets loaded in the memory, they are having a particular path that is called as a life cycle of those threads. They have to pass those and then only they can actually start executing. So what is the first thing that we need to ensure once the objects are ready? There is the first thing is that let us make them runnable. Now that the two threads are there, they are created in the memory, but they are not in a state of running. So first they need to put themselves into the start state, which is called as runnable state. Let me draw this life cycle for you and we shall see what exactly happens. So the first thread once it is in the memory, after we call the start method, that goes into runnable state. Still it is not running. Now once they are running in a runnable state, now as we had called t1.start and t2.start, they are in runnable state. So what exactly its meaning is, they are in the job queue. They are in the job queue of your operating system, and your operating system might take one of the threads from the job queue and put them before your microprocessor. So microprocessor will take certain instructions from one of the thread that has been fed by the operating system to that. So it will execute few instructions. After then, your operating system will take another thread, pass it on to the microprocessor. So once it takes a thread and put that into the microprocessor for running, that particular thread goes into a running state. So all the threads, they are starting from the first state, which is also called as ready state. So once they are ready when they are in the memory. So as we create the two threads like here, they are in the ready state only. Now they are in runnable state. So once they are in runnable state, after making a call to start, as we had said, we had made a call to t1.start first. We still cannot be ensured that t1 will start executing first. It may be like your operating system may take t2 first, and then after that t2.start, the t1 starts later on. This program that will actually see its execution, that may give you different flavors once we actually execute them. So let us execute and see the results. Let us save this program. So let us run this program. So as we see, once we run this program, you can see both of these for loops, they are executing in a different kind of an order. So first, this first thread, there are 4 iterations of this first thread. They are going in, and after the 4 iterations, second thread that gets started, and then first thread, then second thread, then first thread, alternatively that is going on. Then 2 times first thread gets executed, and this is a kind of order that may not be fixed. So if we execute this program, let us see the output in another way. So as we let's just remember this, that first thread is executing 4 times in our first execution. So let us execute it again. Now that you can see that first thread starts, then second thread starts, then first thread starts, then second thread starts, it goes on and on and on. Every time we execute this particular program, you will see a different kind of an output. Sometimes you will see that first thread actually commits first, then second thread, actually there are so many iterations of second thread they are left in. If we execute in again, you will see that it's a different kind of an output altogether many times. Now in this way you can see that second thread finishes first, and first thread which has been started first, that is executing at the late time. So there are different flavors. You cannot predict the output in what way this program is going to give you. Now this is one way of creating and seeing the nature of the 2 threads executing in tandem in one another. So in this video, we had seen the first way of creating threads. In the next video, we shall say there is a different way of creating threads and see their execution. So for this, thank you very much. Let's meet in the next video.